kommunistische Organisation. Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast of Kommunistische Organisation. I'm Anna from Kommunistische Organisation and I will host this episode today. And today we want to talk about Sudan. Some might have stumbled across the hashtag Free Sudan in the last years, but overall, one has to admit that unfortunately the knowledge on Sudan in Germany, even within the anti-imperialist movement, is very weak. This is despite the impressive and revolutionary mass movement in Sudan, in which the Sudanese Communist Party played an important role. And the Sudanese Communist Party is also one of the most important communist parties on the continent, and maybe one of the parties of the communist parties with the biggest impact and roots in the popular movement. And Sudan also is in a very important geopolitical position from many perspectives. It somehow connects Africa to West Asia, being located on the African side of the Red Sea, a very contested area, which we know not least from the Yemeni blockade in the last year. And of course, there has been a terrible and brutal war going on for the last 2 years, almost exactly. It started on the 15th of April in 2023. And it's very hard to find any reporting on it in the German media. And so now in the last week, there have been some major developments, but we will come to that later. But first, I want to welcome Shadia Abdel Moneim, who's the former political secretary of the Sudanese Communist Party branch in Germany. And I'm very glad that you're joining me today to shed some light on the situation in Sudan. Welcome, Shadia.
Welcome and thank you really for this opportunity. I'm really happy.
We have plenty of content planned for today. We will try to understand the history of the popular uprising in Sudan. That is crucial to understand if one wants to understand the current situation. We will then take a closer look at the many different international actors meddling in Sudan and their interests, to then talk about the current situation and perspectives. So, if we want to understand what is going on in Sudan, we of course need to shed light on the struggles of the people. We need to understand what their role in this whole war is, and therefore we need to take a look at what they were fighting for before this war. There were massive protests in 2018 against the rule of Omar al-Bashir, which led to his fall in 2019. And afterwards, there were many transitional governments in a prolonged effort by the ruling class to keep down the Sudanese uprising until factions of those transitional governments eventually started fighting each other. So before we look at the war, let's take a closer look at the uprising of 2018, which the communists also played an important role in. So what was it about, and what was the role of the Communist Party in it? Can you tell us more about this?
The movement in Sudan, like the struggle against al-Bashir regime, didn't start on 2008, but it is the high time at 2008. It started from the beginning of the al-Bashir coup. But the operation was very bad to the political actors, like so the whole political actors. But the operation on the Communist Party was very strong at that time. The movement or the struggle went ups and downs 30 years. There is times which was very high, but not high enough to throw down the regime or to make the revolution or to make the change. In the early 90s, 95, there is attempt to confront the regime, but the regime was very aggressive at that time. And then the time when the Communist Party and the other political parties try to use like their stand against the war between North and South to force the regime either to go down or to stop the war. So, like also at the early, the end of the 90 up to the 2000, 90 up to 2000, also it was very heavy movement, like political movement against the regime, which was really, if it goes the way what the Communist Party draw or think, it was like just could end the dictatorship of al-Bashir. But what happens, the interference of the West countries at that time to form the political sense in Sudan and to lead to separation of Sudan. How? Just like, every military movement needs outside support. Like they need to buy like weapons, they need to the catering, they so on. And Jongarang movement was supported by like international governments. Like I can't name, but some European countries, USA, and so on. So they just like they put pressure on Jongarang to separate himself from the opposition. And they force also to lead the peace talk between the SPLA, Jongarang movement, and al-Bashir party or al-Bashir regime. So they could isolate the opposition from each other. And they lead the process until the separation of South Sudan. After the separation of Sudan, they think that they end up with the opposition. So they can deal with the Bashir regime and with the SPLA in South Sudan. As Jongarang, as the leader of the movement of the SPLA, he is a person for Sudanese unity, like for United Sudan. So, like shortly after the signing of the peace agreement, they killed him. Like they said that it was accident, but nobody believes that it is accident, and there is no investigations. His wife spoke about that he was killed, like it is initial accident, but by the end of the day, she just like kept silence afterwards. Like she didn't talk about that. From 2005, the Northern opposition knew that they should work together because they understood the threat, that they just want to end up with the opposition. They keep in kind of settlement al-Bashir regime. From 2005 to 2000, let us say 12 or 10, 2010, where al-Bashir was forced to make election. This was a great time for the Communist Party to build itself, to be connected with the mass or grassroots organizations, which is not belong to the Communist Party, but actually is kind of political movement or worker movement or something like farmers or and formations these bodies. And after the election on 2010, like al-Bashir regime was very supported from the West, especially from Germany, very supported, so that they cooked the elections. Just like it is the neoliberalism. There is election, there is elected government, but by the end of the day, they can cook everything and say that like it is democracy. It failed because there is very strong resistance. Like I remember that time there is demonstrations in Blue Nile in Mayrno, and the regime was very cruel at that time to the protester. And then the protest was down, and 2012 it's up, and especially in Khartoum, in the universities and so on. 2014 it is big, and it was very cruel when they killed it is the first time, just like they use like fire to kill the protester in 2014. So like I can say that the movement is up and down, but like continuously. In 2018, the economical situation is very bad, and we are in the Communist Party. We have the daily statement about the political and economical situation. We have Al-Maidan, our news paper. We are trying all the time like to reflect on that. And after in 2018, the regime couldn't even present a budget. It took long because really they knew that there is no way to make like reasonable budget, and they knew that the people are ready to reject any kind of bad or aggressive budget for 2018. And by the end of the day, they did it, and the Communist Party called for a march to hand memorandum of standing to the government of Khartoum. And it was like open call, which like in one hand, the politicians from different parties say that it's crazy. And what is the use of that? Like you make a march and you know that they will just like kill you, and you know that like when you hand the memorandum, you hand it to the government who makes this budget. But the Communist Party thinks that it is kind of mobilization to the masses, it is kind of warning to the regime, and it is kind of showing strong opposition. So the Communist Party in 16th of June 2018 called for this march and informed the government, the regime, that there is a march called by the Communist Party, and the people will come with different political leaders and hand the memorandum. It will be peaceful, and the responsibility of the regime to protect the people who are marching to hand the memorandum. And for me, I think that is a very clever movement, very clever step, because from that time, the protest and the people like had the courage to go to the street and protest. Like after that, like the movement started to be here and there. There is march here and there, protest here and there, until uh, the student in Mayerno, it is in also in Blue Nile, they went to the streets. The couple days, the people from Adbara, it is in North Sudan, goes to the street. And then the same day, the people in the masses in Port Sudan, in the eastern side of Sudan, the Red Sea, go to the street. And from that time, the movement start to be bigger and bigger. And the people like knew how to organize themselves and felt that there is a leading bodies, because the Communist Party also from the 2005 until 2010 noticed that like there is no way to work with the trade unions, because the government of al-Bashir is controlling everything. They bring their people to the unions, so that they start to build alternative bodies, professional bodies. They start with the journalism network and the doctor coalition, and then the lawyers democratic front, and then lately the school teachers. And we had 4 bodies, which we can say that the basic of the association which led the revolution until the imperialism could separate it. But it really like show a very good and strong lead. Politically, the Communist Party has coalition with some parties, and there is a coalition for the settlement who is working very close with the international community. The biggest party in that coalition was Al-Umma Party, the right wing. So you can find there is 2 coalitions, one led by the Communist Party and one led by Al-Umma Party. And when like even when you look from like distance, you can find this coalition is left wing, this coalition is right wing. This one coalition is for the settlement, working very close with the international community, and the other coalition is for the radical change. Until the revolution is very high and could throw down al-Bashir regime in the 6th of April and the following days, until we end up with al-Bashir regime. But the international hands, which like started to interfere, like I think that you know about the sitting in front of the military area in Khartoum, and which was very dangerous at that time, not the rapid support force or the army. The dangerous was the ambassadors from different West governments and countries who are visiting the city and like evaluate the strength of the mass movement. And they started to make their strategy to end this from that time. And I noticed that, by the way, I was there in Sudan at that time. I witnessed this thing. I see the different ambassadors who are visiting the sittings. And I knew that this is a way to interfere in the revolution progress. And they affect the association of the union. They affect even the coalition Like they have that coalition which led by Al Ummah Party, the right wing. They are trying like to rescue al-Bashir regime by like enforce kind of settlement which keeps al-Bashir regime and give this right wing a chance to participate in the near future in the political life. But which is very dangerous. They could affect the coalition which was built by the Sudanese Communist Party. And they affect this coalition. They could use their imperialist propaganda just to frighten the parties and the bodies in the coalition from the Communist Party. That if you give them the chance, you will get lost. So you should isolate the Communist Party. And then they did. They joined the other wing of the other coalition. And they started just to use their effort to isolate the Communist Party. And also, there is an election in the Association of the Professionalists, and the result of the election was accepted in the first day and the second day. But by the end of the day, also, they tell them that not to accept the result because the majority of the people who were elected are communist. So they also succeed to split the association. The strong leader of the revolution. So the masses were split. Some of them with the original association, and some of them went with the association who goes with the right wing to the settlement. The splits happens in the 2000. It was very clear in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Like they start like these conflicts. The first time when the settlement, when the international hands try to make yes, okay, al-Bashir gone, but the military forces have the right because they supported the revolution and so on to formate a government to lead the transition period. And they proposed his assistant, and the mass in the sitting refused him. Then they proposed al-Burhan. In one day in Sudan, 3 proposed president will fall down, and 2, and the third was al-Burhan. From that time, the right-wing coalition went for the settlement with the military forces, with the rebel support forces, with the whole program of the soft landing. If you know this program. The soft landing, it is the political project which was proposed by the West governments or the international government, so-called, and it was presented by a person called Lehman. And this is kind of settlement. It is the same that which happened in South Africa during the time of end of apartheid. Yes, it's with Mandela. It is the same kind of settlement which happened in Iraq. It is the same kind of settlement which is happening now in Syria. If you read the proposal like it is called like that, like the proposal itself, the paper itself called soft landing. Like there is no radical change, there is no like major change, only slight changes in the figures of the government, and remain with the economical and political like system, like the relationship with international funds, with the World Bank and so on, and the same relationship with the West, and only change the persons. So the Communist Party was against this soft landing from the beginning. It was very high in 2020. There is pressure from Germany, from USA, from UK, from Norway, on different political parties which are the coalition of the right wing. And they accept it. And they just like say that they can obsess al-Bashir regime by going politically, by going to the election and try to mobilize, and who can like gain the majority, so like, or they can like govern together with al-Bashir. And it is in the history of Sudan, 2020 is a very major like concept. 2020, this is the high time where the settlement is like very forced from the West, and only the Communist Party and his coalition is resisting this, and like by definition the masses. And in to end, like they are trying in every step to force it. Like every month try to make slight change. Sometimes to change the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, sometimes to change the Ministry of Finance, sometimes like give more funds to let the people feel that like this is a good choice, because that's everything is not expensive and the life is good. So like they try until 2020, they just like could split the association and could split the freedom and change force. And this is the time where they weaken, they make the revolution like in confrontation with the transition government, because the transition government led by Hamdok, the first one and the second one, was like not rejected 100%, but there is protest against their policy. Like when they speak about the World Bank, you find the second day very strong protest against that. When they try to make like give military basic to the West, you can find protest against that. When they make the normalization with Israel, you can find the process against that. Like it could not like work the transition government, the two transition government, not because the Communist Party against them, but because the masses against them, and because their project, which they trying to apply, failed in Sudan, like from the political independency in the 50s. It is the same project, and it failed in Sudan. So, like there is strong reasons to be rejected by the masses. And this is what happens like at that time.
Thank you for that overview of the history of the movement in Sudan. So one can understand that there's a long history of struggle in Sudan and organization of the working class and farmers, and that the Sudanese Communist Party played an important role in it. You built organizations and alliances and had to rebuild them again and again because attempts were made to split those alliances, to integrate parts of them in the ruling system, and to isolate the communists, a tactic which we have seen a lot in the history of the struggles of the working class. So there were the forces for freedom and change, and then the forces for radical change.
The forces of freedom and change also split, but not split. Actually, they isolate the Communist Party.
Mhm. And then the Communist Party built these forces for radical change, right?
Yeah, yeah. The conflict started in June 2020, and by end of June 2020, there is like two associations. One is pro settlement with the right wing, and one is like just fighting to exist because they are with the radical change.
In the alliance for radical change, the forces for radical change, it was the Sudanese Communist Party and the professionals associations,
Yeah.
and also other parties, or only those?
Yes, the Nasserist, the people from Nasiri, and one of the Baas parties, and Hashad al-Wahdawi. This is one also, like three small parties, and they define themselves as left parties, but we can say that they are not ideological parties, but programming parties.
Mhm.
Like they haven't like leftist ideology, but like their program is more or less a little bit left,
Mhm.
but they define themselves as left, like
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so there was this association with some self-defining left parties, the Sudanese Communist Party and the professionals associations. And from what I understood, from what you said, there was a strong organizing on the ground, and
Yeah.
you really stated the fact that the centralization of the protest was a major turning point in making the protests more effective. So maybe we can shortly go back to that. You said one important move towards the centralization was the this giving the memorandum to the government. But how did the organizations how did they organize on the ground? Because I heard there was something called the resistance committees.
Committees. It is something a little bit like different because, like, as I told you, from the 2005 until 2010, there is a margin of freedom, political freedom. And we in the Communist Party, like, were very conscious to use this margin to build mass movement. We know that like we can lead, but we are not the only one leaders. And we know that nothing can happen unless it was supported by masses. So, like, to build the mass movement, to organize the people, was our homework at that time. And we had, like, in 2007, we had an idea, just like there is neighborhood committees, which is official it is not neighborhood committees, it is people's committees. Something like kind of the people who are living in the same neighborhood are involved or organize a little bit in a group to link the service to the livelihood, to the neighborhood. For example, like here, the neighborhoods with the BSIRC, this kind of official relations. And it was at that time, like from the time the al-Bashir regime set these people's committees, it was the regime's security eye in the neighborhood. And the services, like selectively, if you are pro al-Bashir party, you can enjoy the services. If not, you cannot dream about it. So at 2007, we think how about just like to enter these people's committees, like the Communist Party members in the neighborhoods join there and try like to disturb these organizations. And it was hard because they know each other. They are like connected to security forces of al-Bashir, and they are member of al-Bashir party. So that just like we cannot be in the neighborhood majority. For example, if the committee like consists of 10 persons and then I join, my voice will be one voice. I cannot change anything. And by the end of the time, I would be at risk. So we found out that like this would not work, but we tried. 2008, no, 2007, like after this debate, we start to build neighborhood committees from the people in the neighborhood. And this was the homework of every communist person in his neighborhood. Try to mobilize the people, build neighborhood committees, to like mention main services which the government should apply to the neighborhood, and try to force to get these services, and use the spare of time to educate people about like demands, how to come protest, how you can just like understand if this like not only angry because the regime is bad, but what you can do to change this. And actually it was very weak because like we started 2007, and the people have started to talk about that. And which is funny, the US embassy with the Republican Sudanese Republican Party, which is religious party in the beginning, and they start to get more political role, and they are 100% supported and financed by USA. So we found out that they started to speak about neighborhood committees. No, at that time we start with neighborhood committees. And then we forward, we find that there is ability in the neighborhood for more political role. So we start to build it as resistant committees. And at this time, we find out that there is very strong trend in US Embassy that there is resistant committees, and they finance it, and they just try to dominate on it. And there was very big conflict at that time, but it works like it builds here and there, but it was not very organized. It was not very strong. During the sitting, the resistant committees, like the people, have the time to meet, have the time to organize themselves, have the time to elaborate on their demands. So from the sitting, like in the 2019, every day, like after the protest in the streets, like the people just meet and organize themselves for the second day. Bit by bit, they are very organized. The resistant committees, no party can say that it belongs to me. It was independent. There is people from different parties in these resistant committees, but the soul of it, like the structure of it, it is people's uh, body. It is independent. They have very clear mandate. So no party can kidnap them. No party can affect them by different program or different mandate than which they have. And this is now like progressed to make their charters, political charters, and then they work on the charters and they make the people's revolutionary charter, or the charter or the revolutionary charter of the people authority. And you can find majority of the people who are in the resistance committee or the committee of the charter are communist. But they are not only the people there. Like we cannot say as a communist party, the resistance committees is ours or our organizations. We cannot say that the charter committees are our organizations, but we are part of it, and we are trying to support, to improve it, to make it stronger and stronger, to keep their mandate to the freedom, peace, and change, to make like clear political view against the war and for democracy and peace and justice. So like we support, but we are not only the only people there. We can say that we started this idea, we started to build it, and it grew despite of our effort.
Thank you for those elaborations. I think it's really important to understand how exactly the communists works and worked within this struggle, and also tried to build a mass movement that is, of course, not only existing of the communists, but the communists trying to lead it and to make it solid against attacks, like you said. So the People's Revolutionary Charter, was it the foundation for the memorandum that was handed over?
Actually, not, but like the memorandum was against the 2019's budget. Government
It's very
budget.
specific.
Yeah. And it was supported, like the call for it, and it was like written by the Communist Party. But it was supported by the association of the professionalism. And in the same day, when the Communist Party like makes a call and try to go to the march, the coalition, the right-wing coalition don't want to join. But by the end of the day, they think that what if the Communist Party succeed to make this step as like political gain? So they joined in the last moment. And it was good. It was good because like it shows that there is a collective political will against the budget, against the economical situation, against the regime. And from this point, the revolution, the protest started to be higher. Like every day, the people got the courage to say no to this bad political and economical situation. At that time, the resistance committees are not that strong, are not that formed, like scattered here and there. You can find there is a neighborhood where there is a political, there is a resistance committee, but you can find like 2 or 3 other neighborhoods, there is nothing. But during the sitting, like started to be stronger, and they could formate them, like organize themselves and formate their relationship, and they have the facilitation link between the resistance committees. And in 2020, it is like strong, and there is link between the resistance committees everywhere. And 2001, they start to write their charters. Every group of resistance committees start to make, like every circle start to write their charter. And then because they are linked together, they could join the charters. And they sit together, and they called it a committee of uniting charters. They work on the charters, different charters. And you can find out that like the charter is written by the grassroots, by the people who are in the resistance committee. Like, for example, in one committee, for example, if there is 20 person, 200 person, you find out that they read the draft. They add their thoughts. By the end of the day, they have the final. And they say, this is our charter. And then the other group. And then by the end of the day, the whole group sits by their representative and discuss the charters, try to unite them. If there is something like needs more discussion, they go back to their grassroots, discuss it, come with an idea. So I think that like the revolution charter is written by people. Like simply I can say that it is written by people. I am representing the association of the Sudanese in diaspora. And I am in the political committee of the charter. And I see how they are taking the decisions. I have more than 4 decades political experience, organized in a political party. I just like, I can say that I have good bulk of political experience, political knowledge. I studied philosophy. So like I'm reading every day. But when I sit with these young people, really like, just like every day you learn something like very variable. They discuss everything, and by the end of the day, there is no decision making. They take everything, even their suggestions, and send them back to the grassroots. And then they wait for the answer for them. They tell them that yesterday we have a meeting, we decide on that and that and that. We want to know your opinion about this decision. And if you think you can change something, you add something, feel free to do. But please make it like within 24 hours or 28 hours or maximum 72 hours. And for my surprise, just like they read it, they write their comments and bring it back. So like I feel that there is something can be alternative than the liberal democracy. Like there is a people's democracy which can work. Like the people can say what they want. And there is tools to let them do that. So the experience of the resistance committees, although it is the first call and first formation by the Communist Party, but now it is independent, strong, they have their vision. Actually, we do agree with their vision. We think that we are in the same page with them, but we cannot say that we made them. We cannot say that we educate them. We cannot say that like we think for them. No.
Thank you for that description of how the resistance committees work. It's of course very impressive that there's so much democracy and activity of people, and of course that's the goal, that there are more people who are active and who stand for their rights and know how to fight for them. And maybe we can come back later to how the situation is now, but maybe let's first talk about what happened then, because you already said that the Communist Party always tried to warn the people of the remnants and the continuation of the old system after 2019, and how the military still played a huge role, right? This became very obvious that you were right, that the Sudanese Communist Party was right about the warning when there was the coup of Al-Burhan in 2021 against Abdallah Hamdok, the one who was installed first for a transitional government after the fall of al-Bashir in 2019. And after another back and forth, this coup of 2021 led to the military transitional government by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, better known as Hemeti, and their military rule eventually led to the war. So the official reason for the current war was a conflict between the both of them about the integration of Hemeti's RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, into the regular military, the Sudanese Armed Forces, the SAF. And your party argued back then that it might just have been a way to escape the transition to a civilian rule that was supposed to happen in 2023 and backed, as we already heard from you, by a strong force of mass mobilization. So this is the main aspect to have in mind when we try to understand why the war started, I guess. But then on the other hand, a lot of the conflict around the crisis of imperialism, the Western fight against the rising BRIC states reflects in Sudan. And shortly before the outbreak of the war, there were talks with Russia about a naval base in Port Sudan, but also US politician Victoria Nuland visited in March 2023, and we know very well that her visiting and bragging about bringing peace and democracy to the world is never a good sign. So can you elaborate on the reasons for the outbreak of the war?
As I said, in Sudan, and I believe in that, and it was, for me, it was very clear. There is two political projects for Sudan. One, which is enforced by the West, like headed by USA and European countries. And there is tools called the Troika. It is consist of UK, Norway, USA. UK as a former colonialist. UK as the police of the world. And Norway as a representative of the EU, the interest of the EU. This is the Troika countries. And the project, which was called Soft Landing, was forced by this Troika. And they have the hands in Sudan like almost 30 years ago. They have the hands which support the separation of Sudan in 2005 or 6. And the project was, as I told you, called Soft Landing. The other project, which is like the demand of revolution, it is the radical change. Radical change in the meaning of throwing away the al-Bashir regime, the old regime, or the old system in Sudan, build new paradigm, which like involving people in decision making, and using the resources of Sudan, which is very huge, to build the Sudanese economy. So like the conflict in Sudan from the independence until now, it is between those two projects. And until the 80s or until the early 90s, the project was very easy to be enforced in Sudan, because it is enough for the West just like to bring a government and support them. But as the resistance against al-Bashir is started to be very strong from the year 2010, so that it was very difficult to just like to make it like that. So they try their best to interfere in a clever way in Sudan. So what happens, like after the revolution, that the confrontation between those two projects is very clear and very high. There is political parties for the soft landing. The soft landing, it is the West model, the military participation in the government. It is kind of the Egyptian system, like it is military regime with a cover of or with a civilian cover. But by the end of the day, the military forces or the military forces is an economical force. They can have their own budget, they make their own economical deals, and is a very wealthy, very strong. So, like, no civilian can make decisions despite of the military institution. The same like Egypt. And this is the Western model for the global South, and especially for Sudan, Egypt, and these areas. So after the revolution, the West won't enforce this kind of systems in Sudan. And they use Hamdok, the prime minister, because they import him to do so. They bring him. He was out of Sudan since the early 90s. Like from 2 or 3 years after the coup of al-Bashir, he just left Sudan. And he left any relations with politics. Even he don't know what's going on in Sudan. But when in the soft landing project, the West needed Hamdok, they bring him. And he is doing what they said to him. And in the other hand, and this model, like to force the military forces to be part of the system, to keep their companies and their economical force. And the civilian just kind of decor, like kind of just showing the world, okay, Sudan is peaceful, there is civilian rules. Finally, the Sudanese are safe and there is civilian rule. But by the end of the day, it is not. And the confrontation at that time is very high. And the first and the second government of Hamdok failed by this project, because like they cannot even implement it. And there is no politician have the experiences just like to make use of the time to implement this project and wait years until it failed. So even these experiences they haven't. And which is very, very funny. One of the politicians here in Germany, I can't remember, says that like, sorry, the Sudanese politician give us people without experiences. Experience to do what you want, show them how to do it. This is which is funny. And by the end of the day, if you support dictatorship in Sudan 30 years, how you can imagine the politician can make their experiences to implement economical and political project? You guarantee that al-Bashir will rule Sudan forever. And when al-Bashir die, his party will train 1 or 2 persons who can continue. Your plan that is dictatorship for Sudan forever. So you didn't invest in the political life in Sudan. You destroy the political life in Sudan. So you can't imagine after the Bashir regime ends, you can find a politician out of a Bashir party who can just implement your project. And this is what happens, really. And for me, it's funny and I like it. Like, it is not only failure in Sudan, it is failures to the West project in Sudan. And it is a lesson which they cannot learn from it. In Germany, in EU, in USA, and in UK. They cannot learn from that because their minds that we are clever enough to think for those poor people. And actually, I like that's the way they just like have this hard lesson and they cannot like learn from it because they are not paying a lot of effort to think how the Sudanese thinking, how the Sudanese want their life to be. And if you told me to do something which you want, actually, I try to do it, but maybe you don't like it. And this is what's happening. And the conflict between two generals, between Hemeti and Al-Burhan, it is kind of like, first of all, the first and the second Hamdok government, it is an attempt to end the revolution. It is an attempt from the West to to cut the road in front of the revolution. They failed. Then they use Burhan to make a coup 2021, the coup over Burhan. And they think that, okay, the Sudanese now will give up, because normally our political process in Sudan from the 50s, when it is going in a way against the West benefits, they end it with a military coup, and we go and have dark dictatorship, and they just like get their benefits from Sudan, and everything is okay. But now it is the 21st, it is a different century and different people and different generations. So the coup is not working. Burhan needed like trying 2 years to have a government. He couldn't. To rule the country, he couldn't. To stop the protests, he couldn't. To make any deals, he couldn't, because there is very strong mass protest against his coup. So what remains for the West? War. And I know this war, it was made, because I remember 2002, I guess, there is a TV interview with Jordanian, I guess, channel, and they have with me with Zoom, I guess, or so I can't remember, but one of the USA government former responsible people, security council, something like, I don't know, but he's responsible about Sudan. And I guess he told me that, like, if the Sudanese civilian not united, it would be a civil war in Sudan. I tell him that this is your dreams. We know that's the second step, that you will start war in Sudan to frighten the masses, and they stop their revolutionary demands. And I think if they use this tool before Juba Agreement for Peace, which was signed in the second transition period, I guess this will succeed. And I guess also the people in the areas which are affected by war, like last years from the 90s, will follow their military movement. But after the agreement signed, the people who live in the affected area by conflict knew that their movement leader, military movement leader, just they are warlords, and they don't care about the authority, and they just like the slogan of freedom and social welfare and everything. This is just like for talk. And from that time, the people in the conflict areas are not following those leaders. So, like, it is very difficult to force a civil war, because, like, also civil war, it is like a political process. It needs civilian support. It needs mass support. It needs a population who thinks that they must fight for their demands. Unless these masses exist, the war also is not working. And that's what happens. The second step, the coup is the first step. The second step was the war. And I know the war in Sudan is supported by different countries. So you cannot say that because it is the main reason of the coup and the war. It is the cutting the road in front of the revolution and revolution demands and the radical change in Sudan and the people rules in Sudan and the real democratic change in Sudan. So, like Burhan and Imeti are just tools. Yes, they need to be in the power because they are like war crimes, not only from the revolution up to now, 2018 up to now, but like period in Darfur, they are responsible of the mass killing and the genocide and everything, so that they need like to be supported to be in power to avoid justice.
Thank you also for making clear that it's kind of difficult to call it a civil war because it's not really the civilians fighting, but more the military that didn't manage to bring to line up the civilians behind them because they don't have a popular support. So I think this is really important if we look at Sudan to not get wrong who is fighting there. And so you already said that the major reason for the outbreak of this war was the military trying to not really lead the transition to civilian rule. And now, maybe before we look into who was supporting them, can you briefly explain who are the fighting parties? Because I think many people are not familiar with them. So we have the SAF, the Sudanese Armed Forces, on the one hand, led by Al Burhan, and then we have the Rapid Support Forces on the other hand, led by Hemeti. And the Rapid Support Forces also have a history, so maybe you can just quickly explain who they are.
Yeah, actually, the fighting parties, the rapid support forces led by MAT, and the official military force, which is led by Burhan. Actually, Hemeti and his forces were like supported by tribal groups, like tribal ethnic groups. And the official army as it builds like half soldiers from all over Sudan. But which is very important to note, the Rapid Support Forces is part of the Sudanese Army and is built by al-Bashir regime to help them to fight for them in Darfur and Blue Nile and Nuba Mountain. Actually, the Rapid Supported Force are supported and built and proposed by EU. It was called Janjaweed when it is like kind of rebel who are just like attack the civilian in the farms and in the village, just like steal something and run, or just guard because they are also nomad, guard their cattle. And they are like militaries, but like not very well like how I can say it, they are not very well equipped. And the EU, when they started the process against what's so called illegal immigration, so they called them the boards guards or something like that, boards guard or something like that, and they pay money to Al Bashir to just like make them as a formal force. And when they signed Khartoum process agreement, they paid a lot of money and they proposed the name Rapid Supported Force. Even the name was proposed by EU. This is not Sudanese name. We in Sudan, we know that they are Janjaweed, like the local name. And until now, we say local name. And we cannot call them more than Janjaweed militia. The Rapid Support Forces, the sophisticated name which was like proposed by EU to fight illegal immigration. And they equip them by very advanced technology and weapons and even drones. Finally, during this war. So who is fighting with Rapid Support Forces? The militias from the neighborhood, like from Chad, from South Sudan, from Libya, from Niger, the tribal chiefs can make kind of agreement with Hemeti and give him 5,000 soldiers. From the poor young people who just couldn't find their way to education or good livelihood, and they are paying them because Rapid Support Force are occupied areas of gold in Darfur. Who is fighting with the government? Some of the military movement in Blue Nile and in Darfur, like Malik Agar from Blue Nile, who was SPLA one of the SPLA groups, fighters, who is fighting for Blue Nile at that time. And there is kind of agreement between him and the al-Bashir regime. And then after Juba peace agreement, after in the second transition government, he is part of the government, of the regime. And the framework agreement which was made not only to merge the Rapid Support Forces in the army, but to keep their forces and power and money, gold. Like officially, they say that to merge it and the conflict is here, but actually the conflict is not here. And we know that the Rapid Supported Forces was supported by Russia at that time and supported by Emirat and supported by different countries. And in the same time, the official army, the SAF, was supported by former military movement from Blue Nile and Minawi movement, who came last year. He kept the neutralization until he came to Germany last year. And only 1 month after his visit to Germany, he joined the army. He had a military camps in Eritrea, and he joined the war on the side of Al-Burhan. So that there is so many hands in the war of Sudan, so many hands.
Yeah, if one researches on who supports who, it really seems like half
And
of the world is included.
the Sudanese groups who are fighting with Burhan, just like they change their stand and go and fight in the side of Hemeti, like Kekal and these leaders with their soldiers. And again, also some soldiers or some leaders from the side of Hemeti change their situation and come during these 2 years, like so many movement between the two camps. So, like, you can't say that it is a benefit. It is who pay you to fight, where he needs you, you go. That's simple.
Mm.
But like regarding the geopolitical stand, like there is a new like division of the resources area in the world. So that like what you give me by this hand, I can give you something like by the other hand. And this is what happening. Like the situation from the world, like before Trump era is different because there is a new interest and new division of wealth and new division of the resources over the world.
Yeah, there were a lot of changes in the support, and actually, it also seems like a lot of the bigger geopolitical conflicts reflect in Sudan, because, as I said before, it's also in an important position. And you mentioned that Russia infamously supported the RSF, but now recently because I think it had gold deals with it, but now it changed sides and will be allowed to build a naval base in Port Sudan. So Russia is now supporting the SRF, and I think they also have worked with them before. And also, due to the resuming relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Sudan, so the SRF, the formal government, resumed to relations with Iran after they had a break for a long time. And the relations were withdrawn in October 2023. So I was wondering if there is a shift towards like a more anti-Western camp. I mean, you already said that it's really like fluid, who turns to who, and it's a lot about the resources, of course, but we also know that something like a naval base in this area is really important for the bigger geopolitical conflicts, and the US as well as the EU seems to kind of support both sides. So I was wondering, how do you see the Sudanese armed forces in this geopolitical meddling?
Actually, what is happening, like in Sudan, is not new. Like now, it is like boiling, but always it was boiling, and nobody knows about that. Just like the communication revolution is two-way effect. Like it gives the imperialism a hand to oppress and to steal the resources from the global south. But in the same way, gives the people from the masses from the global south to say no and to show the world what's going on. For example, what's happening in Sudan, like in Egypt, Saudi Arabia are pro the Egyptian model, like pro the official army and like artificial democracy, which is like military on power with a civilian cover. Saudi Arabia interest and Egypt's interest in Sudan and in the area, it is like more secure and safe with this model. And also Saudi Arabia, 30 years plan pro oil is going for tourism. So they need like peace in the Red Sea. So this artificial Neom city and this great investment and the water and the resources in Sudan, for them, like they are pro this model. Emirat is for the model of liquidization the state, like to support the militia by like government of a family. Militia has gold, can buy guns and can guard the land for them, not only in Sudan, even until Yemen. So like for them, this is ideal. For USA, like best, like both project or both models, it's okay as long as you can enforce them in Sudan. Like if Egypt, Saudi could enforce their models, okay. If Emirat can enforce our model, it's okay. By the end of the day, they want sustainable regime in Sudan. By the end of the day, they don't want the Russia and China and Iran existence in Sudan. So if you can do this and secure this for us, is okay. But like the balance is not for any of the projects. Like the West, especially the Troika countries, especially USA, thought that this war will last only for a few months. The Sudanese will get scared and they can enforce their project. Actually, the situation is not like that. The Emirat, like, they say that the Emirat is supporting RSF, but the Western countries, USA, knew that because Emirat is not producing guns. So that they import them from US and from the European Union. And they know where they sell the guns. They know why they, like how they can understand that Emirat, it is like smaller than Greater Khartoum. Buy all these guns to do what? So like they cannot fool us. The USA and the West countries know that Emirat supporting RSF. They know that Saudi Arabia and Egypt support SAF. And for them, that like who can win is okay for us. By the end of the day, like the balance not like that, and nobody can win. And the situation, like in the beginning, they said that the civil war in Sudan and the two generals who are fighting each other for power. Actually, it's not the fact. The fact that they are letting this spoiling in Sudan until they can enforce their, like by the end of the day, their political project, which is not working in Sudan. And regarding the question, if the Al Burhan can go for the enemy's camp, actually there is no enemy camps, because now, like they sit in the table, they divide the world, they divide even what they want from Sudan, and for them it is okay if Burhan can do that, and he can do it. He can do it for Russia, and he can do it for USA. Maybe it is a little bit critic, the relationship with Iran, and not for USA actually, but it is a little bit like difficult for the Arab countries or for the Gulf countries, like to lose Sudan and Iran win Sudan, because here they will lose the Red Sea, they will lose the agriculture products, they lose the animal waste products, they lose so many things, and it is better for them to control Sudan by themselves. Regarding USA and Russia, they have their deals. For example, you can make as like Russia can make benefit from the Red Sea and Red Sea hills, where it's very rich with gold, and USA can use the lithium, the uranium, and the gold from Darfur. So they can make a deal. Like Burhan is just a toy. Like he cannot even like choose when they don't want to support him, just like they make blind eye to let him go to Russia. When they want to bring him, just they say that, yo, you go to my enemy and you should come back. No, by the end of the day, they make the division of the wheels in Sudan between them. Like Trump and Putin sit, and every one of them knew what he can take from Sudan and how he can take it. And they make their deals. And also regarding Ukraine, they make their deals. You take these lands, I take the minerals. It's okay. So the Ukrainian people just dying like within this. And all the people pay the price of the war. So that there is no worries, there is no enemies here. Like Russia and UK, they are not enemies regarding the interest in Africa and in Sudan. Actually, the great fears is regarding China and BRICS countries. Why? Because not only Chinese expandation of interest and existence in Africa, but also because of South Africa. Because of South Africa, South Africans' law of lands, South African stand, and the threats of new movement in South Africa, which takes South Africa completely to the side of China and BRICS and that. And they try just like to make this point loose. They want to cut the road. They want to make South Africa suffer economically and politically until they cannot be of great benefit for the BRICS countries. for China. The worry is not Russia, it is China. Because like Trump can make kinds of deal with Russia, but for him it is very difficult to marginalize or to minimize the power of China in Africa and the Red Sea.
But you also mentioned that maybe the relationship with Iran is more crucial in this whole fight. And I mean, of course, Russia is also part of the BRICS, so it's
Yes.
not insignificant, but as you said, maybe from another angle, because
Yeah.
some things they will make deals. But so with Iran, it's also interesting if you look at the question of normalization with Israel. You also mentioned that before, that before the war, there was the normalization process, and I think there were also ebbs and flows all the time in the history of Sudan, but al-Burhan originally supported this normalization process. And then when the war started, this was ended abruptly. And Israel was, of course, very keen on going on with this normalization process, but now it looks like it has failed, and due to the closer relationship with Iran, the SAF made yeah, they were condemning Israel openly for the first time. They made visits to Iran officially. So I was wondering concerning this normalization process, and we know that the role of Israel in this whole region is, of course, saying a lot about where a country stands. So is this attempt at normalization lost on Sudan, or do you think it can change again quickly?
Actually, this is the point. Like when I mentioned Iran, like the case is that, like, you know, the imperialism house work. Like you cannot consider Russia as nothing than like imperialist country or like in meaning of oligarchic like system or regime. So like the main idea is like the worries of BRICS and BRICS, like because this make the the domination of USR and the Western system is weaker when there is a new
Like an enemy, somebody
yes
who's challenging
economical
this hegemony of the Western imperialist country.
yes. So like this is one of the worries. Also, who has the interest of the peace and sustainability of Israel? Definitely not Iran. And any regime who is close to Iran, it turned to be the enemy of Israel. So, like, if the Sudanese for the Gulf, like Arab countries in the Gulf, this is not a big deal. But for Iran, it's very clear that, like, how they think about the existence of Israel and the right of the Palestinian and so on. So the worrying for the Gulf countries, not only economical, but also their relationship with the West is under threat if like majority of the region is pro-Iran. And so like this is what the point for this question. The West and US are like worrying about Iranian expandation in Sudan and in the Red Sea. and their support in the Houthis in Yemen, and all of this, like this very big band, which really will cut not only the road in front of their economical interest in Africa, but also the security of the security of USA and the West and so on. So the worrying not only that, but also the expandation of Iran there. And the case, Iran have like ideological stand against Israel, not economical, not political, ideological. So when we go to the process of normalization, I should say it clearly, not because it is my wish, but because it is a fact that any kind of normalization with Israel would never be supported by the people in Sudan, by the masses in Sudan, ever, never. Like it is like kind of agreement in papers. Even Burhan, when he went and met Netanyahu in Uganda, he just hid it. He couldn't say it because he knows that it will be his last moment in Sudan. Because the Sudanese stand is against colonialism, against genocide, against land grabbing, against apartheid. This is the culture. This is not religious reason. This is not religious, not because any things that they are Arab. No, this stand against apartheid. This stand against occupation. This stand against colonialism. So, like Burhan, when he made this agreement, even he couldn't announce it. And when the protester and the journalists start to ask the Prime Minister, Hamdok, he says that he don't know about that, like nobody tell him. And we know that he know everything. We know. But he said, no, I don't know about that. How you are Prime Minister? I don't know about that. Why you stay Prime Minister? Why you fight until today to be Prime Minister if there is something important like that, you don't know about it? So like normalization, it is kind of a dream, American dream in Sudan, which could never ever like turn to true. Like the Burhan signed the agreement, but he could not do anything to establish Israeli existence in Sudan. And that whole transition period, like just deny, like make the agreement as they forced by USA, but they cannot do more. And after the war, not because the Burhan like went to Iran only, but because if he want, if he wish, he knows that he cannot do it. Like there is no regime in Sudan can do that. No, ever, never. Because the people is against like the concept, not against the Israeli people, but against the concept of occupation, against the idea itself, which no, not because of Iran, but would not work in Sudan, ever, never.
It is a hopeful outlook and belief in the consciousness of the Sudanese people. Sadly, we know that a lot of regimes manage to stay in power despite of not having any popular support, and also to I mean, we see it in Jordan, for example, where a lot of people are on the street for the Palestinians, and still the regime is acting in favor of Israel and many other Christians as well. So maybe this this also leads us to the question on the prospect, on how it will develop, because the SRF had some significant military wins this year. And just last week, on the 26th of March, al-Burhan announced the liberation of Khartoum. And I think he even said in an interview that now the war is over. And I have been very careful to state that the war is over. So I would like to have your assessment on it, because also the RSF has been trying to develop a second government with the help of the Kenyan President William Ruto. And you also stated before that they are still really strong in the west of Sudan, in the Darfur region, I think. So might there be a danger of balkanization? And yeah, what will the RSF just give up? Do you think this is like another stage of the war? Or so what are we expecting? And maybe also, would it for now be better if the SRF regained more control to have a more stable situation? Because we know that both sides committed massacres, but as I'm informed, the RSF committed even more horrible massacres on the citizens. So is it good for now that they are out of Khartoum? Or yeah, maybe you can give us your assessment.
The RSF came to Khartoum by a deal with SAF and the advice of the Troika countries. And it is a plan to expand the war all over Sudan, to rearrange the political system in Sudan. Now it is very clear that USA is pro-SAF, like pro-SAF as an institution, but maybe not pro-Burhan, because they knew that Burhan is very problematic. He is like al-Bashir, the same kind of very strange and critical relationship between the enemies. Like he like to play on the all ways, like make benefit of USA, but treat them by the relationship with Iran, make good relationship with Saudi and Egypt, and like try to treat USA by treating the interest of Emirat in Sudan and so on. So that I think that USA is pro-SAF, but not pro-Burhan as a leader to SAF. Maybe they try to change him, kill him, do something, but they are not pro him, but pro SAF as an institution. So that officially the war can be end. But it can end like the same, like wars in Sudan, because Sudan from the year 1955 in a war, civil war. There is no peace. The civilians are dying from that time, non-stop. Like the peace agreement only kept the South Sudanese 2 years without war. But the military existed in South Sudan even after the separation. So that the Sudan actually in a war from the year 1955. The war in Sudan now maybe officially ends in front of the world, in front of the imperialists, in front of the international political system, patriarchal political system. But the Sudanese death will continue. The threat will continue. And Arabi supported war like force has a very crazy and complicated nature. It is more than ethnic group, wealthy. They know how to bring money. They know they have relations. They know how to bring guns. They know, and also I just like remember something now. When the balance be last year started, like the US voice started to condemn RSF and started secretly like sell or give military support to Burhan through Egypt and Saudi Arabia. He made it in a very clear or public talk. He say in his statement that if USA, like we are bombed by your military, like by your guns, and if we wanted, if it is a game like that, just we can open the flood of immigration to Europe. We can just like turn the area of your interest to a point area. He said it. So he can do it. The war officially can be ended. But like it will continue as a military movement. It can continue as a threat for the West. It can continue as a threat for Sudanese, and they know about the minerals in Darfur. They know everything because they have the maps. That they know about the gold in the Red Sea mountain. They know about the interest of Emirat. They see with them. They know about their interest of the Red Sea. They know about the lithium in Darfur. They know about the uranium. They know about diamond in Darfur. They know about everything. So that they will never end up.
So you would say that the relations with the BRICS countries is more related to Al Burhan as a person and not the SAF in general. And this is why the USA are maybe not that afraid of a longer lasting relationship.
The war will finish because USA wanted to finish. And they are pro-SAF, not RSF. So that I think that for the West, Burhan is not the favorite person, but the SAF itself as an institution is perfect. So that maybe they will end officially the war like this. Like just like to make the agreement and to use Burhan until they end the war, and by the end of the war, they get rid of him like the same way they did it with Garan and so many people like before.
But this will probably not be the end of RSF, right?
No, unless they listen to what Sudanese wanted, how the Sudanese wanted to make it. Because like by the end of the day, we cannot say that the RSF soldiers are not Sudanese, because we in the global south, we didn't paint the borders. It is like colonialist borders, so that you can find the ethnic group, part of them in Sudan, part of them in Chad, part of them, but they are the same ethnic group. So when they are in Sudan, you can say that they are not Sudanese. When they are born in Sudan, you cannot say that they are not Sudanese. When they are living in part of Sudan, you cannot say that they are foreigners. But why they are fighting? Why is that? Like, one of the very major notice, the RSF fighters are very young. Like, the age is between 17, 18, and 35. Even the generals of them, like the eldest one is 35. So when you look to that, you know that those young people lack the chance of education, lack the chance of getting health care, lack the education, like, of being human being. But you can't say that they are not Sudanese. They are Sudanese. So when we think about them, we need to merge them in the life. We, like, build a developed country where all the Sudanese have the equal rights. They are the same in front of law. They go to school. They have the same rights as the whole Sudanese in every part of Sudan. If we think this way, we can end up with the malicious concept and Janjaweed concept and RSF. But if we go to the solution from the perspective of the USR and the EU, the war in Sudan will never end.
Yes, of course, because
It will remain in different ways, but will never end.
yeah, of course, the colonials always want the resources and they don't care about the people. So, but you made pretty clear that actually whatever faction wins, if there's a balkanization whatsoever, it will always continue to be war as long as there won't be a civil rule that is really based on the organization of the Sudanese people. And you said before, with the history of the resistance committees and the sit-ins against al-Bashir, that there was a strong organization on the ground. So I was wondering, how is the situation now? Because of course, a lot of people had to flee, a lot of people lost their homes, and a lot of people were killed. So how is the situation with the organization on the ground in general, but also how did this war impact the Communist Party?
Actually, like, the sit-in, one of the major factors which helps the resistance committee to mobilize and to formate and to be better organized. And since that time, they have this structure which is, like, day by day, like, getting stronger. And they have, like, resistant mechanism which is wonderful, because, like, only the resistant committees in Sudan is not surprised by the coup of Burhan. They are not surprised. They surprised by the massacre in the city, which happens. Really, they surprised and, like, this, like, shocking. But after this shock, they expected the coup. They expected the war. So that they are, like, just, like, develop their resistant ways and their resistant strategy, and also they develop their organizing strategies. For example, the resistance committees, the majority of them, although the majority of the people flee because of the war, but the majority of them still in Sudan. The majority of them are working in the camps and in the IDP camps and in the shelters, which is like the people flee from the bombing to it, so that they are there. And also the organization structure from bottom to top and back helps them to be connected. Like when they just lose the connection with the facilitation group in certain area, just they try to find the nearest facilitation group to connect them with the people in the ground. And if all of them like needed to flee from the area, then they check immediately when they are safe where they are and how they can like continue their resistance war. So like yes, the war affects them. The war affects the whole Sudanese, and but like the hope that yesterday or the day before yesterday, when the people return back to Umdurman, I guess, or to Bahri, just they make a small march, resistance march, that we are here, we are fighting, we are like for the revolution demands, and the revolution still is going. So like they affected, but we can say that they didn't destroy it. Regarding the Communist Party, as I told you, the majority of the central committees in Sudan, the majority of the people from the Communist Party who are living in Sudan, they just like moved to safe areas and continue like their resisting activities. But it affects them because like they are suffer hunger, suffer lack of medications, hard movement between towns, and also the lack of communication in some areas. Like for example, sometimes we are waiting for some connections or some information, like normally by email or telephone call, we get it in minutes. Now sometimes we should wait for 1 month, and sometimes we wait until one of our comrades go and just like make the connections, and then the person move to an area where there is satellite to send a message or to do something and to be secure, and the message to be secure. Like really we suffer as a Communist Party. It affects the Communist Party, but it didn't affect it is resistant activities. It didn't affect its existence, because unless the comrade died, he can act in the place where he exists. And I think that this is like a resisting mechanism which the Communist Party has developed since the 70s.
That's very good to hear that the work is going on and the comrades are staying strong despite the horrible conditions that they are facing in the war.
The constitution, just like to add something, the constitution of the Communist Party, that every 3 members of the Communist Party in a village or in a farm or in a workplace can make a branch. And they can develop the branch. For example, if you go to, for example, to any village, and you find out that you know to as a comrade, You start to the branch, and then you develop the branch until it get 30, 50 members or more. Like to be careful, to work in secure way, and so on. So that like we say the Sudanese communist like a seed. It grow up wherever they are. We try to be this seed.
So I wanted to ask you about the role of women in the struggles, because you wrote in one text of yours, "It is no exaggeration to say that women were one of the most important revolutionary forces on the ground in 2019." End of the quote. And even though we know women always play an important role in struggles like that, often they are overlooked, but in Sudan it was really visible in the pictures and reports we got here. We saw women at the forefront, which really impressed me.
I want to say something regarding women. Like, you know, that 70% of the people in the street of the revolution were women. And women are like, didn't stop struggling against Al Bashir regime, ever, never. Like, they formed every soon and then a resistant body just to confront the dictatorship of Al Bashir. Because they knew that it is not only like the threat of the dictatorship, but it is direct threat to women, because it is the first time in the life, social life in Sudan, rape is normal. There is a job in the security, Al-Bashir security force, like paid raper who can rape the activist, and this is job like paid job. So, like women in Sudan are very clear about resisting any dictatorship, resisting Al Bashir dictatorship, resisting Islamic dictatorship. And I can assume that the conscience of Sudanese women that led the Sudanese people to reject any kind of dictatorship, military or civilian or Islamic or ideological. No dictatorship can just like grow and continue in Sudan. But the international community, as they do care about women role in Sudan, they corrupt the feminist and women movement in Sudan by fund, by workshops, by training, by this like trends. Not they are not just discussing the class stand of women. They are not like they avoid the class struggle. And I was in Uganda. It is a very big state, a very big refugee state for the Sudanese. And I was there in November. I found out that the new liberalism style of organizations is a livelihood style for Sudanese immigrants there. And this really is very big threat. Like just they are working as trainer and training and workshops and making it as livelihood. They they far away from the right women struggle. They are far away from the concept of women's struggle and for freedom and this concept. And for me, I think this is initially what's happening, because the one of the very important reason of the victim of the revolution, of the success of the revolution at that time, women. So that when they just liquidize women movement, they can guarantee that even if we resume the revolution, it will not be strong enough to continue to sustain. And this is the threat in the Sudan women movement. The Sudanese, like Communist Party, demands that like freedom, peace, and justice is the slogan of the revolution. and the radical change. And we think that if the US and EU take off their hands from Sudan, the Sudanese can build their country. And it is not important that the civilian in Sudan is to be united because we are different. We are different and we are diverse. And we can really manage this diversity. So, like, really, we want the German people to understand what's happening in Sudan, the hands of the international community, our vision as a revolutionary and as a communist party about the international political system, and our vision of their democracy. And we want really to build our democracy, our lives, and to make use of our resources, Sudan. And we want balance relationship with the world. Like, we know that they have their interests in Sudan, and also we have their interest in technology and so many things. So that we put our interests and their interests on the table, and we know how to manage that. But otherwise, they cannot occupy Sudan, they cannot force a dictatorship in Sudan, they cannot force a political regime in Sudan, and the suffer of the Sudanese will continue forever if they keep their hands in Sudan. So just we need at least the German people and the European people understand what's going on in Sudan, which kind of resources we have, and what we lack. Like, we don't need them to think instead of us. We know how to think about our future, just like they just to take their hands from Sudan. And like, I am very happy with the questions, really. And I found out that you are very well informed about what is going in Sudan. You have good information about what's going on in Sudan. Like, how we can find the information about Sudan. Unless you find Sudanese revolutionary, you cannot find information, because which is written in the uh, imperialist media, and is like what they think, not what's going on in Sudan. So what we need to write the correct narrative, write articles, publish broadcast about Sudan, let the people know about the, because like one of the young women in the resistance committees like said that our revolution is a liberation revolution. And she agreed with me that we are a liberation movement. We are trying to draw new future and implement new paradigm in Sudan. So, like, the support is just to let the people, because we have no hope in the Western government and Western regimes and the international regime. Our hope is in the people. When they understand what's going on in Sudan, what we lack, what we need, what we want to do. And I think that, like, also we should work together to build kind of internationalism, to like bring the communists in Germany and all over the world together. The communists in Germany, because like it is shameful, the imperialists and the capitalism knew the threats against them, and they can unite and they can work, although they are different, although they are hate each other, although they want to take as much as they can from the resources in the country or in the land, but they knew how to unite. How we have very smart ideas and we cannot unite. We should do that.
Thank you very much.
Unite, not to be the same, because we are diverse. So like we can find like common ground.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we talked about this before, and it's very impressive in Sudan that the Sudanese Communist Party managed to remain one uniting communist force. And you also told me um, how different forces, also the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung of SPD was trying to create splits, but luckily didn't manage. And we know that this is a common tactic, and this is what KO is also working against the split of the communist movement, and we're trying to create a more solid debate. And of course, all those information about the struggles in Sudan and other countries, they're really crucial to build internationalism that is really based on solidarity and on understanding each other's struggles and support them. So thank you very much for the insights. I think there would be much more to talk about, and I think it's also a task for us, because you mentioned that the EU and especially Germany has a lot of deals on the pushback of migrants, and that this was something that the RSF was trying to blackmail them with. So I think this whole deals on migration is something that is really our task to work on more, and I think we can also collaborate there to shed light on it. And yes, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for this very nice interview, and really for me like great experiences. Thank you for the questions, because for me the questions like give me the hope that like yes, there is communist people in Germany.
Kommunistische Organisation. Podcast.